never got to know who she was thoroughly. The woman who sat alone, thinking, wondering, remembering. The image of the two just crept in my head all the time, their laughter, their joy, their happiness. I didn't want to be jealous. I didn't want to be without. I didn't want to be the only one. But I was, and I still am. And I'm battling a better way because that won't be any longer. That won't be in me in the future. I will be like them. Hello, everyone. My director of choice is Tyler Perry. That intro you seen was a very prime example of his most common art. Excuse me, my name is Whitney Williams. This presentation, the intro showed you how his film narrative style is melodrama. He typically records or directs everyday life situations between middle class and upper class. This particular set I chose is more of a take on his earlier work, breaking into the business of being a director. He originally writes stage plays, so that's very impactful on his movie types, on the genre at least. They're mostly modern. That's why the intro you've seen a young girl waking up crying out of bed, uh, with the music playing in the background. At least every one of his secondly mainstream, he tends to film a mainstream Hollywood style movie and a not so mainstream, which would be, I think it's called third cinematography, if I'm not mistaken, of types of bodies, which means his more refined Hollywood style work, it doesn't typically have any story to deal with them. His most popular character, which would be Medea, which is him dressed as a woman. If anyone's ever seen the really tall guy with the curly wig and the long purple dress on, that's him doing his own characters in most of his movies. And so the basis of almost nearly every movie I've seen has a really strong moral tie to it. Most of them have something to do with uh, building a solid family foundation. So that's the narrative point, at least. He usually typically has a strong black woman lead, and for some instance, the trend I've noticed is that 90% of those women aren't villains, but they are in the best place mentally. They're really hard. As a woman, life issues, previous life situations have made them very hard and developed them that way. And if they have a counterpart, a male counterpart, he's normally a really hard-working guy. So there's 90% of his movies, the woman is a strong male lead. She's really bitter. She may be really hard to deal with, to work with, and her counterpart, the man or her love interest, he's a really hardworking, maybe even a blue collar, white collar guy with a low paying job, and they fall in love. She typically changes in some way. She opens up to him, and that's normally the theme. There's been a lot of writing suggesting that maybe, he has issues with women because of, his very own preferences in life. He's going through a lot of, Tyler Perry himself is going through a lot of identity issues right now, I would say. So maybe that ties into the role of his work. That's for the cinematography of his work. He uses a lot of, these styles I mentioned, they're not necessarily 100% well put, well thought out, or well appropriately used, but they're used a lot of long shots, which is the beginning scene that I had with the church music. My character is lying in bed crying, and then she gets up and she walks out the room, and she's walking and she's walking, and then the scene changed to a panning shot. But that first scene, it was long slash like a medium kind of almost shot, and that was that long shot's supposed to supply information that's not mentioned or that could be used to provide additional information we don't know or something educated. Well, he will typically use music and or dialogue. Most of the time it's music, which is why I had the gospel song going in the background, because normally he's trying to tie a religious theme of whatever your religion is. You need to tie it into your life to make things better. So that's normally the case. That's which is why I had the Christian church song going on by Pastor Shirley Caesar. So he also uses a lot of rack focusing, which I didn't show in this one, but when I discussed my sequences, they were all rack focusing. He tends to have a medium or up close shot of each character talking, hence my video is being recorded very up close. This is the style that he normally films in as well, and he ciphers between that and medium shots, which is the very final scene as I'm introducing the secondary characters. In my beginning, very tiny sequence, it shows the two of them together playing. Sorry, they chose to be hidden. The transitioning is normally, very, it can be a pretty fluent transition. His work style, I would say I'm discussing his work in two different styles. He does a more middle class, I want to appeal to the African American culture films, and I'm more mentioning that here. And then he does really, really refined movies that can go all the way to Hollywood. So a little I was reading doing my research, a lot of critics were complaining on the transitioning between the scenes in his more urbanized films, I would say, that he wants to use. As far as sound, he definitely uses songs, very diegetic sound. He always has the song matching the time right now, which is it's not necessarily always church music, gospel music. It's secular half the time as well, but there's always a song, and that clearly comes because his background before then was for plays and stage writing, so they use music to identify and tie in with the crowd, which happens in nearly every movie that he produces, no matter what it is. As far as the mise en scene, all the characters, everybody is always modern. I've never seen a body of his work shot in any other time period other than the modern time period of right now. Even his TV shows and the soap opera, everything is 21st century, very middle class or upper level middle class woman, or there could be a lower class man in middle class, or if it's urban, they're all working in the city and the country life, or someone lives in the city. It's very time appropriate. It's normally a melodrama, so everything is very everyday. It's all happening right now. All the electronics are up to date to right now as well. So that is my spiel on Tyler Perry. I watch a very lot of his movies. My most favorite one that he made was a movie called Temptation. That is what I wrote both of my sequences on, and my sequence, it was about a woman, the strong black woman lead as well, had a really hardworking husband as well, both successful middle classmen. She worked for a matchmaking service, and she was trying to catch herself not to have an affair with this new temptation guy named Harley, who came out the blue. He was a rich millionaire, and he just showed her a whole new world other than the country life they were accustomed to growing up. And that was a perfect example to use as well, because she had to learn her lesson the very hard way. She wound up, this is a spoiler alert, she wound up cheating on him, cheating on her husband, catching AIDS from the millionaire, and nearly dying because the millionaire was a really terrible substance abuser and put her on substance abuse, and he abused her, and she almost lost her life behind it, and she lost her husband. So that is again where it comes in. Critics are saying, like, does he have issues with women in lead? But they all went to church at the end. She learned her lesson through her religion. She got her strength from her savior, and they didn't put their marriage back together. She found a new wife, but you learned the lesson there. So that is normally how a lot of his writing goes, his directing styles. A lot of long shots, a lot of rack focusing. It's very conversational style movies, very melodrama. You guys will check out a lot of his movies. I'm pretty sure you've heard of his most famous character, Medea. And if not, hopefully I've interested you enough to check it out. And I thank you all for listening to my long spiel about this, and have a great day.